Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors Podcast. This is going to be a fun episode with Katie Burgert. And Katie has a podcast on the Wild Initiative Podcast Network. Her podcast is called Fish Untamed. And we talk all about fly fishing in kind of central Colorado and some of my experiences there during the summer. So this should be a little bit different of an episode, but I think you guys will really like it. I want to thank you guys for supporting this podcast. I want to thank my sponsors of the podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com, The Gear Shop, my friend Cody Nelson, 20 plus years, routinely is helping the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners, helping them purchase optics. If you're looking for any optics at all, rifles, scopes, spotting scopes, binos, rangefinders, tripods, anything to do with glassing, give Cody a call, 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. You can also you'll call him and he will answer that phone directly. You can also send him an email at optics@gohunt.com. I want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. KUIU is the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. You can go to KUIU.com, that's KUIU.com, to find out more and to order. It's a direct-to-consumer brand. Just a phenomenal, they make phenomenal hunting gear. So go check them out, KUIU.com. Phonescope.com, use the JScott19 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount if you use the JScott19 promo code. That is the digiscoping adapter that I use on my iPhone X. And then onxmaps.com, use the JScott19 promo code. You're going to get a 20% discount on the onX phone app. It's the best Western mapping resource out there. I use it every day. Go to onX Maps, use the JScott19, save yourself 20%. Let's get right to this episode. I appreciate Katie having me on, and appreciate the Wild Initiative Network letting me air this as well. So take care, guys.
You're listening to the Wild Initiative Podcast Network. Learn more and check out all the shows at thewildinitiative.com.
You're listening to the Fish Untamed Podcast, where we talk all things fishing, conservation, and the outdoors. Today on the show, I'm joined by Jay Scott, host of the J. Scott Outdoors Podcast. All right, welcome to episode number 2 of the Fish Untamed Podcast. Today I'm talking to someone who's probably familiar to most of you, and that's Jay Scott from the J. Scott Outdoors Podcast. Jay spends a lot of his time hunting down in Arizona, but he also spends his summers up here in Colorado fly fishing. So we had a great time talking about some of the larger rivers in central Colorado and floating them with some of the local guide services and the world-famous salmon fly hatch that happens here every June. So if you've ever considered coming out to Colorado to hit some of those larger rivers like the Roaring Fork or the Eagle, or if you've ever wanted to come out and hit the salmon fly hatch in June, this will be a great one for you. So without further ado, here's my chat with Jay Scott.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to coming on with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I don't know if you remember me, but I had messaged you on Instagram back in the day asking for elk hunting tips. So
yeah. How did that go?
I didn't get any, but I did have a couple encounters, which I considered a success for my first year out.
Awesome. Are you still at it? Still doing it?
Yeah. I have a first season rifle tag this year, and then archery deer starting next weekend. So
oh, awesome.
Looking forward to that.
Awesome. Now, where are you living?
I'm in Lakewood, so just outside Denver.
Cool.
I'm pretty familiar with the area that you live in during the summer, like I think over in the Carbondale, Basalt, Eagle area. Am I right?
So yeah, kind of between Carbondale and Basalt, which is about halfway between Glenwood Springs and Aspen, and right here in the Roaring Fork Valley. So I get a lot of really good fishing. We had high water this year, so it was an interesting year for sure.
Yeah, I usually do at least 1 or 2 trips over to like the Frying Pan and the Roaring Fork each year, but I didn't go this summer. We're thinking about going this fall, but how was it this summer after such a snowy winter?
Once the water came down, which, to be honest, it really didn't get what I would call fishable and kind of the levels that I like until probably about August 1st, which is crazy. Usually we're fishing, last week of June. It was really, really good. So it was hard to wait that long. I wanted to go and fish right here in my home waters, but was able to go to the green multiple times and catch an amazing cicada hatch there, and did the Gunnison Gorge, which was fantastic, and the Eagle and a bunch of other different rivers. So it was a little bit of an interesting year as far as just timing, wanting to get out there sooner, and kind of had to wait. I was like a little bit of a cooped up dog, but yeah, once it started, it was fun.
And probably going to last pretty late into the fall then, too.
Yeah, I got to head over to the Ot 6 Ranch here September 1st, so Saturday morning. But quite honestly, probably some of the best fishing of the year is, going to be over the next 60 days. So pretty neat to come off a year last year where it was so dry and droughty to such a great snowfall year. It's great for the fish. It's great for everything. The water is just awesome.
Have you been over to the ranch at all so far?
Yeah, so I've been over there. So I got back from my Gould's turkey hunting in May, and we come from Arizona around May 15th, and we're here for the summers. I was over there June, July, and August. So I made several trips over there, checking trail cameras and just checking conditions. Interesting. It's been, I don't know about where you've been, but such a dry August. August has been, very, very dry, not only in Arizona, but pretty much everything that happens down there kind of moves up here the next day or two. And, here in the Roaring Fork Valley, it's just been virtually no rain at all. And then over there at the Ot 6 Ranch, very, very dry. Now, conditions look pretty good in the high country, but kind of down by the ranch house and some of the lower country, it's pretty dry, but we had a great winter, so I can't complain.
Yeah, we were just talking about that, I think yesterday here, how all through June and July, we were like, this feels like spring, which we usually don't even get much of a spring out here. And we're like, everything's so green. And then yesterday we were like, it hasn't rained in, a couple weeks, and it was raining every day for months, it seemed.
Yeah, it's made the hopper fishing actually really, really good. Sometimes we'll get those big rains and it kind of knocks those hoppers down, but August, it hasn't rained hardly at all, literally here at all, that the Roaring Fork Valley, the fish are actually eating hoppers on the fork, which is not, I would say I haven't caught a ton of fish in years past on hoppers, but a lot of that too is that I'm not fishing, August 25th, because the water's come down. Now it's at great levels. And so they are still eating hoppers. They're eating hoppers right now.
Mm-hmm. So just for a little background, do you want to talk about kind of how you got into, I know you're mostly a hunting focused podcast, but every summer I look forward to hearing all your fishing episodes because they come out. So if you just want to give like a little background on how you got into hunting and fishing, and then what you do now with the podcast and everything.
Yeah. So how many hours do we have?
As long as you need.
So I'm kind of a story of, I was one of those kids that wanted to hunt and fish ever since I was a little kid. My grandma actually bought me a Field and Stream. I come from a ranching background, and my grandma on that side bought me Field and Stream magazine, Outdoor Life magazine. And I was the kid that would always crease the little corners in the magazine on the little tips or this, that, or the other on, the secret fly, and I didn't even know what all that meant. I was also the kid that would go into a tackle shop and, stick my hand in the, the plastic worms and, feel them and just like, oh man. And I was one of those, any chance that I got to go fishing, I soaked it up, but I wasn't exposed to it a lot. So that's why I love to take kids fishing now. I love to take new people fishing and get them into the sport, because I was kind of one of those that I wanted to get into it, but I didn't really have as much of the outlet that I would have liked to have. But at an early age, when I did get to go fishing, I was the kid that, stood on the side of the bank with the Zebco 33 reel, and I had my bobber and I had everything all lined up because I had read about it in a magazine. And then I'd see the guy go by with the boat and, had the outboard motor, and he had, then I'd watch him come in 4 or 5 hours and have a big stringer of trout. And I was just like, man, if I could just get in that boat, I just want to fish. And so for hunting and fishing, I've just had a passion since I was a little kid, and very grateful for some of the people that were able to expose me to it and take me out. And the passion for hunting and fishing both run as deep as it ever has. And literally, my wife would say that I am like a kid in a candy store. Every day I get to fish, hunt, do whatever. I love it. So, I'm constantly thinking about where I'm going to fish next, what I'm going to fish, how I'm going to do it, what I'm going to do better. And the same thing with hunting. So it's just a great, and living in Arizona, it's a very arid state. It's not the most opportunistic state like say Colorado here. So probably 15, well, it's been longer than that, probably close to 20 years now. I've been trying to spend the summers in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, those types of places where I could fish as much as possible.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfect escape to, once it gets super hot down in Arizona, just come up into the mountains and kind of get to be in the outdoors year round. And you ski too a little bit, right?
Yeah, I snow skied as a little kid growing up, probably till I was 20 years old, maybe just 22 or so. And then I laid off for 20 years. I say I went to work. And then about 2 years ago, we bought this place here. We'd been renting in this valley for like 8 years, and the place that we were renting came for sale. So I bought it and was able to ski last winter or the winter before. And then this last winter, I only got 7 days in. That's a whole nother story, but I just love snow skiing as well. I'm one of those guys, I'm all in. Whatever I do, I go, just 100 miles an hour and go as hard as I can. And not necessarily from a skill level, but more just from a passion level, just go for it. And so, yeah, I enjoy snow skiing as well.
It's nice. It fits right in with all the other seasons. There's not much else taking up your time. And
that's exactly right. It's a great filler. With fishing season, people always ask, would you rather hunt or fish? And I'm like, don't make me choose. And, it's funny. This summer, I've actually picked up golf again. I used to golf in high school and college, actually had a small golf scholarship and played a lot of golf, and then gave it up for 20 years while I was working, doing my real estate business. And I've picked it back up this summer and just really enjoying golf as well. So yeah, I'm constantly doing something for sure.
That's great. Just keeps you out and about.
Keeps me out of trouble is what it does.
So do you do much fishing at all down in Arizona, or is it pretty strictly separated? Like you save the fishing for when you come up here?
Yeah, as arid as our state is in Arizona, we do have some really good fishing with Lee's Ferry. Fished it a ton, and over a time period, fished a lot. And we have some small creeks and lakes and that kind of thing. But compared to Colorado, it's nothing like what we have here. It's the opportunity in Colorado and Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and wherever we end up going is way better than Arizona. But Arizona's taught me a lot about fishing too. And so, I can't complain.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guide fishing as well, or is that just hunting?
So I'd have to go back to give you the exact, but about 20 years ago, I got my hunting and fishing guides license in Arizona. And the reason I got a fishing guides license is because it didn't cost me any more money, and all I had to do was take a fishing test. So I thought, well, I'm here, I might as well just get them both. Mm-hmm. But I've never taken a actual guided fishing trip, so to speak, in Arizona, and I'm not a licensed guide in Colorado for fishing. Mainly just fish with family and friends. And my big joke now is, I'll row the boat all you want, but you're tying your own flies and you're getting your own fish off the hook. And if people can't do that, then they need to. I always say, then they need to stay home. And they laugh. But I'm not a licensed. I am a licensed guide, but I'm not an active guide as far as fishing. Just hunting.
Sure. And you do real estate as well, right? Professionally?
Yeah. So real estate is my main business. When I graduated from Arizona State University I got my real estate license right out of college in 1997. And I worked really, really hard in selling residential land in Northeast Scottsdale, kind of a northeast part of Phoenix. And worked that market really, really hard from 2007 to 2008 when the market crashed, and was fortunate to have good timing and be in the right place at the right time. And then when the market crashed, was able to make some really good investments in some single family rental homes and other things, when the market had, buying stuff at 10 cents on the dollar, 20 cents on the dollar. So from a real estate perspective, the reason I'm able to do a lot of the hunting and fishing and stuff that I do is basically based directly or attributed directly to the success that I had in real estate. And I'm not near as active as I used to be. I still do a few deals here and there. And I'm a real estate junkie, so I'm always looking, I'm always messing with it. But, there was a period of time from 07 to 08 where I was, just hot and heavy. I still hunted and fished just as much, pretty much, but I worked a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it's got to be stressful trying to maintain a job, but then also trying to keep those passions alive. So I bet it's a lot easier when things are stable.
The beautiful thing was the real estate business was pretty much, I didn't do much acting as an agent. I was basically representing myself and buying and selling properties. So I was my own worst enemy in that, I had a million things going, but I still had to go fish and hunt and do all the different things. But I could do it. My wife would tell you I'm a workaholic. I work a lot. A lot of people see all my hunting and fishing. They're like, you don't work at all. I'm like, well, I mean, there's several ways to skin a cat, but I like to stay busy for sure.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention that between your hunting, fishing, golf, skiing, and, actually having a job.
Sounds pretty recreational, doesn't it? Yeah.
You have a lot going on, and you get it out.
One of the things with being a hunting guide, I was able to take, the passion of hunting and become a professional guide. And it allows me to be in the field a lot and kind of justify to myself the amount of time that I spend. And with my podcast, it's just an extension of what I do. My wife says, you're talking to your buddies on the phone all the time about hunting and fishing, so why not just talk to them on a podcast? And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So, that's just been a extension of what I do every day.
Yeah, and I feel like your podcasts are pretty thorough. Listening to yours, they're very information heavy, and you'll go, dive into one specific unit or just have guys come on who, know so much. I usually listen to my podcast at like a higher rate of speed, but I need to slow yours down sometimes to take it all in.
Well, it's one of those things. I hope to not put too many people to sleep, but I'm super information heavy and education heavy. I like to interview people, and I love being able to pull little nuggets and gems of information out of people. And I feel like I'm pretty good at that. I kind of have a niche for it, a knack for it, I guess I should say. And I've had some phenomenal guests, and it's just been a real blessing to be able to, help people. And so I love doing it. And it's, it's one of those things that I feel like information and education go a long way where, I'm not an entertaining guy. I'm not my wife says I have a radio face. So, we're doing here a video podcast, so we'll see how that goes. But the podcast is just a great way for me to talk about the things that I love to do and pick people's brains and try and extract as much useful information for other people that I can out of it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got pulled into this as well. And I also have, the site I post on weekly, and it's just like a good way when, like, I a couple of months ago severed a tendon in my foot. So I was,
wow,
boot ridden for a while and couldn't really do much. And it was really nice to have like an outlet for me to feel like I was still, interacting with what I want to be doing, even if I can't actually be out there. And it's just really nice, on any given day, I'm probably not, going fishing, but I can still pretend I am,
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome to talk about the things you love for sure. How's your foot now?
It's better now. I'm still in physical therapy, but I've resumed most normal activities. I was using that medical boot as a wading boot for a while though, so it was it was foamy and it would suck up all the water and got really.
I'm sure.
I just couldn't wait.
Can you say the word mildew?
No, I thoroughly dried it out each night, so
okay,
it's still good to go. But where have you been fishing recently? What's your main river there?
The Roaring Fork is probably my main river here. We've got about 40 miles of Roaring Fork from, Aspen down to Glenwood Springs, and then it joins the Colorado there. And, there's probably another 40, 50 miles from, Glenwood all the way down to, Parachute or below that. And then, the Eagle River Valley, which is the next valley over. It's kind of the Vail Valley. Fished the Eagle River a lot. And then, like I said, this year was a phenomenal year up at the Green River below Flaming Gorge. I try and make 2 or 3 trips up there a summer. It's only 4-hour drive from here. And the cicada hatch this year was, it was something that it's the best cicada hatch fishing I've ever seen. It seemed like every trip I went, it just got better and better and better. And, friends over there that guide, they're saying they were, catching fish on cicadas all the way through July, which is rare. But, the fish there at the Green River, it's a tailwater and they're really big fish. And they see a lot of flies, but, if you're able to get the fly in the right spot and, throw what they're eating, they'll just come up and smash it. If you've never been to a cicada or a true cicada hatch, I highly recommend the Green River. It's phenomenal. And then the Gunnison Gorge we did a trip down there, caught the salmon fly hatch just perfect.
That's what I was going to ask, if you got to fish that.
Yeah, I try and hit that every year. I've had some unbelievable mentors, guides, buddies of mine, Eli and Hunter and Keaton and Jake Kepler, some of those guys that have, kind of took me under their wing and kind of showed me the ropes of that local water. The salmon fly hatch, what's amazing about that, Katie, is the golden stones are going off at the same time as the salmon flies. And, there's Black Canyon Anglers and then Gunnison River Expeditions. Those are kind of the 2 main guide services that'll take people down the Gunnison Gorge. I highly recommend that to people. And, if you can get a trip with Eli and Hunter, Jake, or Keaton, and they work at those 2 companies respectively, I highly recommend a Gunnison Gorge trip. This is an amazing place. It's from Chucker Trail down to Pleasure Park. It's about a 14-mile float, which a lot of the guide services, they'll split it up in 2 nights in the canyon, 3 days of fishing. We just did a 1 overnight there, and a lot of times I'll just do it all in 1 day and just do a 14-mile float. But we pack I've got a little 9'6" or 9'8", 5 foot wide raft that it's 110 pounds with frame, and we break it up between the frame and the raft and take all our gear down there. And I row and my buddy fishes, depending on which buddy's here. And it's just an amazing place. You got to do it if you haven't done it.
I haven't done it, and I'm jealous of your ability to float. Because I was thinking maybe you were going to say that you went with those guide services, but I was like, I feel like he does it enough that it sounds like he's got access to something on his own.
Well, I went with them and they kind of showed me the ropes, but I highly recommend Black Canyon Anglers and Gunnison River Expeditions. And if you could get any of those 4 guides, I know them personally and they're fantastic. And they're way better at it than I am. They know the fish, they know the fishery, they know everything about, everything about it. So I highly recommend them. But yeah, it's an amazing place. And, usually we'll make a trip up to Wyoming and fish around Jackson Hole. We didn't this year, just with the water being high, just timing and everything. It just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. Have you fished anywhere else in Wyoming? I've only hit like the Casper area, but I've been to Jackson Hole, but never to fish.
Yeah. So I fished all around Jackson Hole, fished, the Snake, the South Fork of the Snake, which is in Idaho, up over Driggs, and it's an amazing river below Palisades Reservoir. It's actually in Idaho, and then the Upper Green River, which is about an hour south of Jackson, is an amazing fishery, and that is the same green that flows into Fontenelle Reservoir, that then flows into Flaming Gorge Reservoir, that then creates the ABC section that I was talking about on the cicada hatch. So the Upper Green is a crazy, amazing river as well. Starts out as this little river like most, and then just turns into just, the Green River. Mm-hmm. It's a big, big river.
Going back to those, the salmon fly hatch, what are you usually catching on those, and like what sizes roughly?
So usually, I mean, those salmon flies throughout the stage of the hatch, they can kind of come in, they come anywhere from like a 4 to 6 to 8. And so you're throwing something that's, 2 inches long, usually like a flush floater, which is a type of fly that the company Umpqua, sells. It's called a flush floater salmon fly. And, you throw it out there, you slap it on the water, you throw it in close to the canyon walls. A lot of times you're coming down river and you can actually see where a fish has grabbed a salmon fly and splattered water up on the wall.
Oh,
so you look for that, and so you can kind of cast about 2 feet in front of that, and that same fish is going to come hit your fly.
So I assume that there's like sheer canyon walls straight down into deep water. There's not, obviously it sounds like you can camp in certain areas as you go down, but a lot of it's just that sheer cliff.
Well, there's definitely a main canyon section, but within the canyon section there is areas where it's kind of alluvial and it's kind of opened up, and there's maybe a couple small little tributary type drainages or creeks that come in, and you get grassy banks and some of that stuff. So it's not all canyon walls out of the 14 miles. And then also above where everybody puts in on the Gunnison Gorge, there's, I don't know exactly, but I think there's another 15 miles above that's in the national park. That's all for wade fishing. Basically, you just wade, and that water comes out of Blue Mesa Reservoir, and that can also be an amazing fishery with some access points. Like you can drive to the east portal, and that's out of Montrose on the way to Gunnison. And you'll get those salmon flies that start down low all the way down below Pleasure Park above Delta, and they'll run all the way up the canyon, and then they'll run the whole stretch, and I'm guessing it's close to 30 miles all the way up to the head of the canyon, almost up to the dam there at Blue Mesa Reservoir. So Gunnison River is an amazing fishery for sure. A lot of brown trout. Was known for rainbow trout a long time ago, and then they got whirling disease, and then the browns have really, really taken over.
Yeah, that's what I picture when I picture the salmon fly hatch. Is a lot of big browns. What time of year is it usually about 2 weeks long, or am I off?
Yeah. Those guys that kind of taught me the ropes could probably tell you better, but I mean, normally it's prime for about 2 weeks. But if you're starting the progression of the hatch way down river, where the water, you've got the North Fork of the Gunnison, you've got the Gunnison, it's got big muddy water basically, and so it's not extremely fishable till those bugs really kind of get in the canyon. But I would say from start to finish, about 2 weeks is a good guess for sure. And it's usually like about the 5th of June till about the 25th of June, if I had to guess. I mean, you'll see sporadic bugs in late May, and you'll see sporadic bugs probably into early July. And then, like I said, the crazy thing is the golden stones are also coming off at the same time, and they're virtually the same size. So,
oh, really?
I mean, you could be throwing a golden stone, or you could be throwing a salmon fly, and those fish, they'll smash it for sure.
And I assume that there's really no point to fishing anything else during that. Like they're keying in on those big bugs.
Yeah, once they kind of get a feel for that, they're keyed in. This year was interesting from what my guide buddies told me, is that the nymphs, the fish were so keyed in on the nymphs, it took them a while to want to take the dries, because the salmon flies, are crawling. They're the largest of the stonefly, and they're crawling out of the river bottom onto the shore to dry their wings and become an adult. That the fish just start eating the nymph like crazy below the surface, and it took them a while to get on the dries. But then once they get on the dries, they're on them pretty good. It's interesting, here in the Roaring Fork Valley, we're known for our green drake hatch, and this year, with the water being so high, it kind of made the drakes, it's water temperature related, but the drakes just poured off, basically from below Glenwood, like it's Silt or Newcastle, all the way up. And at any given time, usually there's a progression of a hatch. It starts down low and works its way up, and every day or so it's moved up a half mile or so. This year it was kind of like drakes were going off at all times, at sporadic times for sure.
Huh. I've fished drakes on the Roaring Fork a couple times, only up like in Aspen area where it starts to get pretty small. Do you fish it up there at all, or are you more like the big river down lower toward Glenwood?
I like it all. But the interesting thing about the Roaring Fork is it's a true freestone river. So I mean, you get up by Aspen and it takes on a whole new kind of pocket water, like Jaffe Park and above there where it's pocket water and a kind of a small creek, small stream. Although it's not called the Roaring Fork for nothing. I mean, it roars, that a small river, but it really can kick out some water. And then you get further down by Glenwood and it's a wider river and more glassy and smooth, and so it just kind of depends what kind of mood I'm in.
Right. And going off what you said about it definitely roaring, I can attest to that. And when I think of some of the hardest rivers to wade in terms of how slippery they are, the rocks in that river are just round and extremely slick. And I've gone through there more than once, arms linked with other people. So if someone goes out, then, everyone's there to catch them, especially when the water's high.
Yeah, and right now those rocks are so slick, and over the next couple of weeks, I imagine they're going to be getting even more slick with the moss and such on them. Up high, there's not a lot of moss on the rocks because the water's, the gradient is, the water's going fast enough that the moss just can't grow. But down from say Carbondale down to Glenwood, there's quite a bit of moss, and the rocks are very, very slick. Interesting, this year in, let's see, it must have been around 4th of July. First time this ever happened to me rowing in my big boat. I just took a friend of mine's kids for a fun float, and we floated from the ranch here where I live down to West Bank, which is about halfway between Carbondale and Glenwood. We were middle of the river, and I kept hearing what I thought was rocks rolling. Well, it was the rocks on the bottom of the river literally going kaplunk, 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 and felt like they sounded like they were going faster than the 13-foot raft I was rowing. So that was the first time I've ever actually heard rocks consistently rolling in the middle of the river. And it was, I want to say that day it was flowing at like, I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 CFS, and those river rock it was amazing to hear, and it was so cool. It just sounded like literally you were rolling rocks down a cliff face.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I would, obviously you were in a boat, but definitely don't want to get in the water when that's happening.
No, I'm sure the fish were like, what the heck is going on, and hugging the bank tight, trying to just survive. And that actually was really good, I think, for the fish this year. They got a big long break between, what we call mud season, and the water was so high for so long. The fish are pretty healthy and hot, and we had some really good fishing once the water came down.
Yeah, I'm wondering how the high alpine fish are doing, because there's been a couple lakes that have just iced out, or I don't know if there's still any with ice on them, but in the past couple of weeks, I know some were still losing their ice, which just seems like they're not going to get a very big window this year.
Yeah, that's true. I've had some buddies that have done quite a bit of fishing for, in high mountain lakes for cutthroat and stuff, and said it's been a fantastic year. But yeah, some of those really, really high lakes, definitely those fish are probably feeding like crazy because they've been cooped up for all spring, and then they know winter's coming.
Right. Not far off now. I mean, I guess it depends on how this winter goes. It could start in December. It could start in October. So
yeah, it's crazy. Right now, it feels like, the old timers call like an Indian summer, where it's just hot. Normally by about the 15th of August in this valley, we'll have overnight lows kind of in the high 30s, low 40s. I mean, it's been like 52 to 55 for seemed like the last month. So yes, I feel fall coming, but it's still really, really warm. I mean, normally it's like 75. It's still 88 to 90 degrees.
Yeah, I've seen a couple trees down here starting to slightly change their colors. And I'm like, I think you're a little premature because it seems like there's not much sign of cooling down yet.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. This valley is an amazing valley to see the leaf change, and especially up by Aspen, you get just unreal. And then going over towards Gunnison, anybody ever looking to go look at some awesome Aspen leaf change, color change, drive that Kebler Pass. Basically would be from Carbondale up by Redstone over the top, going into Crested Butte. Just amazing forest, I guess you will, of aspen that's just out of this world.
Yeah, we've gotten caught in a couple traffic jams going over Kenosha Pass the past couple years because that's already a busy place to go hike and everything during the summer. But I've been stuck in hour-long traffic jams just because people are crossing the road up there trying to get back and forth between the different sides of the trail.
Yeah,
but
yeah. It's beautiful. Colorado's beautiful in the fall for sure.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome when you can, like I said, we usually go over to the Frying Pan usually once or twice a year. And lately we've been doing it more in the fall just because the crowds are a little lower and it's a little cooler out. But that canyon just lights up in the fall. The sun on the red canyon and all those leaves.
So my buddies over there that fish it quite a bit say that the green drakes have already started. The PMDs are really going. But the drakes, they'll expect them all the way through September. So if you can get out there, I know you'll probably be doing some elk hunting, but the drakes, they're saying it's going to be a phenomenal drake year over on the Frying Pan.
Yeah, I'd love to make it over there. I think we're not going to make it over until probably late October. Okay. We go and do the pumpkins where, people leave pumpkins all through the canyon and everything. It's just nice to be out there when there's fewer people. But by that time, I feel like there's kind of a hodgepodge. Like sometimes we'll still be getting some PMDs coming off depending on how warm it gets. Some streamer fishing. I don't know. Just it's like a hodgepodge time of year. I feel like depending on how the summer goes.
There's some huge fish in that river too.
There are.
Unbelievable.
I feel like my average fish size has gone down there over the years. I first fished it in, I think, 2012. And I feel like at that point, it was almost every fish I caught out of that river was pretty large. And the past 2 or 3 years, I've noticed some smaller ones, like maybe 10-ish inches, which I feel like is a bit smaller than I had in the past there.
Yeah, that is a good sign though. For one thing, if the fish are smaller, you probably have a lot more fish that are naturally reproducing and such. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, I guess. Yeah, the fish are smaller, but there's probably some good reproducing going on there. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I've also kind of tried to commit more to trying to fish dries there, and I feel like
that could be a huge part of it.
Yeah, if you want to catch the big ones, you should probably stay subsurface a little longer.
Down and dirty. Yeah.
But I love, there's so many pockets in that river that you can just like spot and just watch your dry just drift right over it, and I'd rather do that.
Yeah. It's funny, fly fishermen, at least speaking for myself, you go through stages where you just want to catch every fish in the river. Then you want to catch them all on streamers. Then you want to catch them all on dries. That's the thing I love about fly fishing is there's so many aspects to it. No matter what you're using, you can figure out a way to catch them. And part of the strategy and the tactic of, the setup and, where to cast, how to drift, tight line, high stick and whatever, now with the Euro nymphing craze and, there's just so many ways you can be a total junkie. And that's why I like fly fishing. I tend to lean towards being a streamer junkie and being a dry fly junkie myself. But there was a time I used to just love to go down and dirty and nymph like crazy and catch every fish in the river. And so there's a time for everything, I guess. Yeah,
it's kind of a choose your own adventure every time you go out. And I wouldn't say that I only subscribe to one thing or the other, but when given the choice, I like to throw dries. But most days, especially in the pan, I start the morning with a couple nymphs down below, and I do streamers occasionally, but that's probably my least used fly.
There's just something about, whether it be dries or streamers for me, watching fish come and hit your fly, whether it be a slow take on a hopper, or, a sporadic, caddis or, a sipper on a mayfly. And then, you get those fish chasing streamers, the visual aspect, I'll fish a streamer that I can see overfishing a streamer that I'll catch more fish on just because of the visual aspect. Fish a white streamer that I can see a fish chase rather than fish a dark, even though maybe the day that it's going to call for a dark, just because I love to watch the visual aspect of trout feeding on my fly specifically.
Yeah, and especially those waters over there, they're so clear. You can often, watch a fish rise over and over and over again, and you get to know, I feel like you get to know that fish. You could be sitting there for half an hour trying to get him to, but, if you finally do get it, you're like, it's a very satisfying feeling to know which fish you're going after.
Yeah, I learned that when I was in New Zealand. I was over there for 2 weeks and got to fish 9 days. And, it's a totally different story over there because there's very few fish. You're hunting for the fish. You're trying to watch and find the fish. And, you may go a half mile and there not be any other fish. And then you may get a shot or two at that fish and he's spooked and you got to go another half mile to find a fish. So, we have it pretty good here, I think, in the West, in the numbers of fish and the size of fish that we have. We have some amazing rivers here in the West.
Yeah, I've been hearing that about New Zealand. My friend's going there in a month or two, and she's looking forward to it. But we were talking about it. I was like, I think it's supposed to be like you get 1 or 2 shots a day at fish, but if you do catch one, it's going to be the biggest fish you've ever caught. Did you have any luck down there?
Yeah, we caught some really big fish, really big brown trout. And, I'd love to go back. I keep telling my wife I'd like to go back for like a month or more where I can really spend time and not feel like I'm rushed. I felt like before I was there for 2 weeks and did fish 9 days, but, I would love to go for like a month and fish, 15, 18 days, but feel like I could space it out and, really give it my all on the days that I was fishing. But if you get a chance to go, it's unreal place for sure. We were on the South Island and, crystal clear water in most of the places we fished. And there are just some absolute giant fish there.
So did you take a guide, or is that a place you can do DIY? I picture it being hard to figure out because there's so few opportunities, but it also sounds like maybe you just walk until you find one.
Yeah, I actually went all the time with a guide the 9 days that I did fish. I actually booked a trip through the Best of New Zealand fly fishing. And this goes back to 2005. So it's been quite a while, but we had a amazing trip and it was very well planned out and the guides were fantastic. And I think it is a place where you could go and do some DIY. Again, I think it's probably a place where if you could go for a month or so and really devote the time to just kind of messing around and a little bit of trial by error type of thing. When you go on a shorter window, you feel like if you're just blowing a day, it's hard to take. But the Kiwi guides, they were fantastic for sure.
I was in New Zealand in 2014, I think, but I was there because I had been studying abroad in Australia. So I just took a quick trip over there for 8 or 9 days. Unfortunately, so the trip was not for New Zealand. The trip was for studying abroad. So I wasn't planning my time or anything, but I was super excited to fish. And then right before I left, I was like, wait a minute, it's the opposite of the Northern Hemisphere. And I got there and it wasn't just that the fishing wasn't good that time of year. It was that it was mostly closed because it was spawning season. They wouldn't let you fish for them. So I got to fish in one of the lakes I was near. I didn't catch anything. I was just kind of winging it because I wanted to, give it a shot and just say I fished in New Zealand. But I didn't catch anything. And I'd encourage anyone going to remember that the seasons are not the same as they are here.
Yeah, for sure. But, that's one of the nice things. When it's cold here, you can go down there and it's warm and vice versa. So, that's cool that you studied in Australia. I haven't gotten to Australia yet, but it's definitely on my list.
I keep hearing more and more about Australian fly fishermen,
Yeah, I do too.
Fishing for like the Murray cod and, all the species they have over there. So that'd be a cool thing to check off the list.
Definitely.
Well, Jay, I can let you get going soon because I know we've been going for a while here, but if there's anything else you want to mention about, fishing in the Glenwood area or about your hunting services or real estate or anything, feel free to throw out some plugs for yourself.
Well, anybody that's out there listening, if they're not familiar with this Roaring Fork Valley or the Eagle River Valley, with the towns of Vail, Aspen, Glenwood Springs, it's a fantastic area, even over at Gunnison or down to Montrose. There's so much fishing in central Colorado and southwestern Colorado. I highly encourage you guys to just come out and check it out. There's lots of great fly shops, lots of great guides in this area. And lots of resources where you could get on and find a lot of places to fish DIY as well. So we've got, like I said, the green drake hatch, in this valley. You've got phenomenal caddis hatches as well. So to all your listeners out there, come check it out. It is a beautiful area. And just want to thank you for having me on, and congratulate you on the success of your podcast. It's awesome to see you doing well and flourishing with this venture of yours. So that's really, really cool. And if anybody wants to hear any more about, I guess they can come on Instagram at JScottOutdoors. And then I also have a podcast. You can find it on iTunes, J Scott Outdoors Podcast. So I just appreciate you thinking of me, and I love chatting, hunting, and fishing. So hats off to you for doing this great podcast that you do.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. And I would definitely encourage anyone to go check out your podcast too, because it's a lot of hunting, but there's also a lot of really good fishing tidbits right in the middle of the summer there.
Yeah. A couple years ago, I did one that I still get a lot of comments on. I don't know if you listened to it, Katie. I did a floating down the river on the Green River. I mic'd up my friend who's a guide with Spinnerfall Guide Service, Colby Crosland, and still get comments about a cool podcast where I was fishing and my friend MJ was fishing, and Colby was, basically guiding, doing his guide talk. We're buddies, so he wasn't guiding, but like throw it here and this and that and the other, and it made for a really exciting podcast episode from what people tell me.
Yeah, I do remember that one. That was pretty cool. You've done a couple of those like live on the water ones. So
yeah,
anyone who wants to go join on a trip with you guys, just go listen in on those ones.
Sounds good. Well, I really appreciate you having me on. God bless you, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, thanks. You too, Jay. All right, and that'll do it for episode number 2. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and go over to the Wild Initiative podcast. That's where all my episodes are coming out right now, so go ahead and subscribe there, and my episodes will also live on fishuntamed.com in addition to weekly backcountry fly fishing articles. You can also find me on Instagram at Fish Untamed, or on Go Wild under my name, Katie Burgert. And I will be back here next week. So till then, have a good one.